Star Wars has just changed one of the biggest events in galactic history, which in turn has a knock-on effect on the character of Ahsoka and the stories told post-Return of the Jedi.
Tell me what's going on.
As we're looking forward to the future of Ahsoka Season 2 and beyond, there's at least one more story to be told from her past.
I'm not here to discuss my past.
One that's vital to the stories on the horizon, so fire up your Jedi Starfighters and strap in as we delve into the latest change and what it all really means for Ahsoka.
So much like your father.
Before we dive in, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video if you enjoy it, and if you want to catch more of our Star Wars videos like this one, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Okay, now with all that out of the way, let's get into the untold story of Ahsoka Tano.
Will I see you again?
Perhaps.
This is where a Ronin such as you belongs.
At this point, Ahsoka's an established and vital part of the overall Star Wars story. Her journey began all the way back in the Clone Wars, where she wasn't the most likable character at the start.
Yeah, no kidding.
However, that soon changed as we watched her grow and evolve into a leader under the guidance of Anakin. We saw her break away from the Jedi, and then before long she found herself fighting for the rebellion, which then brought her face to face once again with her former master, although this time on opposing sides. Ahsoka's one of the rare instances of someone knowing both sides of the Anakin Vader character and living to tell the tale. Well, even that was a bit of a close shave. She had a few close calls with death herself. And you know, at one point during the creation of the Clone Wars, George Lucas was adamant she needed to die. However, as we all know, that didn't happen. Now, fast forward to Ahsoka's arrival in The Mandalorian, and now she looks to be a focal point of the Star Wars stories to come, both on Disney Plus and in the theaters. We've already seen her brush shoulders with some of the newer characters, Din and Grogu, but also some of the older as well. We know she was present and witnessed the construction of Luke Skywalker's, the son of her former master's Jedi Academy. And that's actually massively important, so we'll talk about that more later. Now, in the first season of Ahsoka, we witnessed a transformation from someone who was your typical, used to be a Jedi but not anymore type of character, and, you know, she still carried the morals of the Order, give her credit where it's deserved, but she was pretty emotionally and mentally beat up due to her past. Now, as a result, where there was a lesson to be learned in more recent years, it seemed like she took the wrong one away with her. And that was, of course, until Anakin stepped in for a pep talk via the World Between Worlds and put her
back on schedule,
helping her grow into Ahsoka the White, with the ghosts of her past firmly behind her. Now, long story short here, she still fails to stop Thrawn returning to the galaxy, which was her main objective, but on the flip side of that, she finds herself right where she's meant to be on Peridia. Now, from where we left things, it looks like Season 2 will be heading more into the direction, at least partially, of the Cosmic Force, the gods of Mortis and Abeloth, with that likely also bringing a lot more time with Anakin, which will be pretty cool. And if you're interested in that, then check out my video just before this one, where we talk about that in a lot more detail. I'll put a link in at the end. Anyways, the timeline of The Mandalorian, which Ahsoka and the Book of Boba Fett shows also sit within, doesn't exist just to tell the return of Thrawn and build up the sequels. There's a ton of other stuff that's gone on, even in the years between Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian Season 1, with one of the most important being the Purge of Mandalore, otherwise known as just the Great Purge, which was effectively the Empire realizing they couldn't control the Mandalorians and punishing them with genocide, stripping their planet of its natural resources like Beskar, and destroying its entire surface. While most of the population was wiped out, most of the few that did survive fled the planet believing it was uninhabitable and even cursed. And right up until the Ahsoka show, all that was revealed about where this event fit in on the Star Wars timeline was that it was after Return of the Jedi and before the first season of Mando. Then in Ahsoka, we found out it happened right at the end of the Galactic Civil War, which would have placed it at 4 BBY, but in true Star Wars fashion, that's now changed, thanks to the latest Star Wars game Outlaws, to 3 BBY a full year earlier, which has a huge impact on the stories and characters with ties to it, but perhaps none more than Ahsoka and her stories to come. Now, up until recently, many fans, well, kinda guessed the reason Ahsoka wasn't known to feature in the Galactic Civil War herself was because she was busy training Sabine Wren to be a Jedi.
Let's go again.
However, now we know the event that put a stop, which we now know is more of a pause to her training, the Purge of Mandalore, where Sabine lost her entire family, actually happened 2 years prior to the war ending with the Battle of Jakku. So that now mysteriously leaves Ahsoka unaccounted for once again. It's worth noting here that although it's a subtle update to the Star Wars timeline, they don't tend to do things like this without a greater reason, and when you consider who Ahsoka is as a character, as well as the fact her good friend Hera fought against the Empire right up until the end on Jakku, it's almost impossible the fighting between the Rebels and the Empire continued with Ahsoka having no knowledge or involvement in it. Anyways, by doing this slight tweak to the timeline, they've effectively cleared the path for another story to be told. One that involves Ahsoka, one that fans have been wanting to see for a number of years, which contains key events that feed into the mystery that surrounds her right now in live action, but also Ahsoka Season 2 and the movies further down the line. And that would be the final years of the Galactic Civil War post-Return of the Jedi. Interestingly, it's also just been confirmed that Luke Skywalker was also present for the Battle of Jakku as well. So not only is it possible, I think it's very likely that Star Wars is gearing itself up for another story which would dive deeper into the immediate aftermath of the Battle of Endor. Initially, I thought this would be an animation, and some of it might be. However, it then came to me a key event we're yet to see take place that would likely happen here, and it's way too big to not be done in live action. And that would actually be the initial meeting of Luke and Ahsoka, where we'd see Anakin's son meeting Anakin's apprentice for the first time.
So much like your father.
Of course, we've already seen them with one another in the Book of Boba Fett, however, that wasn't their first meeting. They already seemed pretty well acquainted, almost like Ahsoka was just dropping in almost. Anyways, it isn't just the fans that have thought of this scenario either. Ahsoka creator Dave Filoni, who's also the chief creative officer over at Lucasfilm right now, revealed he had already written their initial meeting out, but was just waiting for the right time to tell it. Perhaps their initial meeting came in the final days of the war after Ahsoka had stopped Sabine's training after the Purge of Mandalore. You know, I have a feeling whatever is being cooked up there would be pretty dope for fans across the board. We'd see Luke learning about his father during his younger years in the Clone Wars, and Ahsoka getting some closure on how Anakin went out as a hero, saving his son and destroying the Emperor, fulfilling the prophecy of the Chosen One in the process. But they could also exchange more than just words. Although Luke faced off against both Vader and the Emperor, and he was the only one to make it out of that room alive, he hadn't received all that much training. Sure, he had bits here and there with Obi-Wan and Yoda, but nothing compared to a Jedi that was trained at the temple before the Empire rose to power, like Ahsoka, who was trained extensively over a number of years by Jedi Masters, as well as arguably the most gifted Jedi there ever was. Although in this instance, if Ahsoka was to give Luke some additional training, the student's powers would far surpass that of the Master's. She could help him establish a deeper connection to the Force, as well as new Force abilities and skills in combat, passing on the knowledge his father Anakin had once bestowed upon her. Now, I think there's a really good chance this part of the timeline is one they plan on exploring next. We already know they're putting Luke there through the comics, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it picked up in animation at some point either. And we know there's unannounced Star Wars projects for Disney Plus in development right now. And as I said earlier on, I feel Luke and Ahsoka's initial meeting is far too important to tell in any other way other than live action. But they could very well be setting a scene here, establishing that these characters did once before take to the battlefield alongside one another, and perhaps even more. But I think the initial meeting would work best as a flashback in either Ahsoka Season 2 or one of the movies that come afterwards. After all, if they want to have all of these heroes come together and fight against Thrawn, as the creatives have mentioned, then it needs to feel organic, and a good opportunity to achieve that would be for something to be said or to happen in its initial encounter, which causes one to seek out the other when the threat of Thrawn becomes more evident.
Today, victory is mine.
Anyways, I want to know if you'd like to see Luke and Ahsoka's initial meeting on screen, and if so, how do you think it would go down? As always, drop your thoughts, theories and wilder speculations down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it, and if you want to catch more of our Star Wars videos in the future, then make sure to subscribe and keep it locked to the channel. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.